All right, good afternoon. These are your notes for 5-2 using intercepts. So, intercepts are where the graph crosses each axis. So, for instance, here and here, the graph would cross each axis, so the y-intercept is 6 and the x-intercept is 3. To find the y-intercept, you substitute x equals 0 and solve for y. And to find an x-intercept, you substitute y equals 0 and solve for x. Okay, so in examples 1, 2, and 3, it says find each intercept. I know these graphs are a little rough to see, but so it's going to be the place where our graph crosses each axis. So the graph crosses the x-axis at 3, and for this one, it crosses the y-axis at -3. For number 2, it crosses the x-axis at -1 and the y-axis at -2. And for the third example, it crosses the x-axis at -2 and the y-axis at +4. Okay, so that's all there is to it when you're getting it from a graph. For examples 4, 5, and 6, it says find each intercept. Use these 2 points to graph each line. So we're going to go off to the side. And when I do the x-intercept, I would have made y 0. So realistically, it's just going to go away. So I'm going to say that 3x equals 9. And then divide by 3. So the x-intercept is 3. And then when I get the y-intercept, the x would have gone away because 3 times 0 is 0. So I have 9y equals 9. And then divide both sides by 9. So y equals 1. I will graph each of those points on here. So x at 3, y at 1. Okay, and then simply draw a line through your points. Okay. For number 2, the x-intercept would be 4x equals -12. Divide both sides by 4. So x equals -3. And the y-intercept would be 6y equals -12. Divide by 6, and y equals -2. So -3 on the x, -2 on the y, and connect the dots. Okay. For number 6, for the x-intercept, I have 2x equals 4. Divide both sides by 2. X equals 2. And for the y-intercept, it would be -y equals 4. So divide both sides by -1, and y equals -4. So 2, -4. And we are going to again connect those points. Okay. Interpreting intercepts. These can be found on page 175 in your book. It's going to be your turn, number 6. Sorry, I forgot to grab a book. Okay, your turn number 6 says the temperature in an experiment is increased at a constant rate over a period of time until the temperature reaches 0 degrees Celsius. The equation y equals 5 halves x minus 70 gives the temperature y in degrees Celsius x hours after the temperature begins. Find and interpret the x and y intercepts. Okay, so I have the problem written down. Y equals 5 halves x minus 70. And then I wrote down that y is temperature and x is hours. So we want to go ahead and get the x and y intercept and tell exactly what those mean. So to get the x-intercept, again, we would make the y 0. So to say 0 equals 5 halves x minus 70. And I'm going to solve for x. So the first thing I have to do is add 70 to both sides. So I have 70 equals 5 halves x. To get rid of the 5 halves, I'm going to use the reciprocal and multiply both sides by 2/5. Cross cancel before I multiply, so that becomes 1. And that's 14. So x equals 28. And because 28 is the hours, that means that it takes 28 hours for the temp to reach 0 degrees Celsius. Right? Because it's whatever the x means when the y value is 0. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do the y-intercept now. So I'm going to substitute 0 for x. So y equals 5 halves times 0 minus 70. Okay, when we solve for that, that one's a little easier. Y equals negative 70. So what that means is the temperature, or the starting temperature, is negative 70 degrees Celsius. Because the y would have been 0, and that's time. So it's when we started. Okay, graphing linear equations using intercepts. The problem can be found on page 176. It's your turn number 7. It just says, here's the equation, graph using intercepts. The easiest way to do this is to rewrite your equation in standard form. We learned that yesterday. And standard form is ax plus by equals c. So I'm going to add 5x to both sides of this equation to get it into standard form. So I have 5x plus 3y equals negative 30. Okay, and from there it's going to be much easier to find my intercepts. So to get the x-intercept, I'm going to use 5x equals negative 30. Divide by 5, and x equals negative 6. For my y-intercept, it's 3y equals negative 30. Divide both sides by 3, so y equals negative 10. In my graph here, I drew it by 2's, so it doesn't end up gigantic. X is negative 6. My y value is negative 10. And again, connect the dots. Okay. The homework for this lesson is 5-2. It's on page 177 to 178. You're going to do numbers 2 through 18 even and 20 to 22 all.